Okay, so the format that we've been doing is I'll read through all three versions that I have. And if you have a version to share, you can read through your version. And then we'll break it down line by line just to figure out what these things mean.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first version is from what I call the original translation, but it's just probably because it's the most well-known. So that's that one. And this is Proverb 3. Not exalting the gifted prevents quarreling. Not collecting treasures prevents stealing. Not seeing desirable things prevents confusion of the heart. The wise, therefore, rule by emptying hearts and stuffing bellies, by weakening ambitions and strengthening bones. If people lack knowledge and desire, then intellectuals will not try to interfere. If nothing is done, then all will be well. So that's that version. The second version I have is from the Tao box. It's these cards. So that's what that looks like. And this one's titled Wu Wei or Wu Wei. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. So
Wei.
I thought so. And we replace sage with teacher to be a little bit more modern. So just FYI. The teacher is occupied with the unspoken and acts without effort, teaching without verbosity, producing without possessing, creating without regard to result, claiming nothing, the teacher has nothing to lose. So there's that. Sounds like my 2.5-year-old is upset downstairs, so I apologize for the background. Uh-oh, we got another person. Give him a second. Hello, Elon.
How you doing?
Good. We've got Marissa here with us tonight.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I am on the third version of number 3 here, which is this one here. It's the Essential Tao by Thomas Cleary. Elon, do you want me to go back and reread the other two?
No, I'm pretty familiar with him.
Okay.
Wait, so you're on number, what number are you on right now?
3. We're on the first one.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This one has a title also called Not Exalting Cleverness. So, not exalting cleverness causes the people not to contend. Not putting high prices on hard to get goods causes the people not to steal. Not seeing anything to want causes the mind not to be confused. Therefore, the government of teachers empties the minds and fills the middle, weakens the ambition and strengthens the bones, always keeping the people innocent and, what did we decide? Non-attached or for passionless? Was it unattached?
Non-attachment, unattached. Because you can be passionate but not attached.
Okay. So let me reread that line. Always keeping the people innocent and unattached. It makes the sophisticated not dare to contrive. Actions being without contrivance, nothing is disordered. So out of all of these, so far, the Tao box this time is my favorite. Elon, did you have any others to share? Any other translations?
By not adoring the worthy, people will not fall into dispute. By not valuing the hard to get objects, people will not become robbers. By not seeing the desires of lust, one's heart will not be confused. Therefore, the governing of the saint is to empty one's mind, substantiate one's virtue, weaken one's worldly ambitions, and strengthen one's essence. He lets the people to be innocent of worldly knowledge and desire, and keeps the clever ones from making trouble with their wits. Act naturally without desire, and then everything will be accomplished in its natural order. That second to last sentence is the only thing that gets me with this version.
Okay, well, I forgot to mention, I need to stop this meetup a little bit early tonight because I have another meetup right after this that I have to prepare for. So I
For the
apologize.
equinox?
Huh?
For the equinox?
Yes, yes. So
It's interesting because I have a different version. I mean, they all sound very similar. I mean, I feel like on this one, to me, they're all saying the same thing. I mean, pretty clearly, but I have the one by John C.H. Wu. I don't know if you want to hear it.
yeah, no, because they all use different words that kind of help you understand it. So that's why I like different versions.
So this one says, by not exalting the talented, you will cause the people to cease from rivalry and contention. By not prizing goods hard to get, you will cause the people to cease from robbing and stealing. By not displaying what is desirable, you will cause the people's hearts to remain undisturbed. Therefore, the sage's way of governing begins by emptying the heart of desires, filling the belly with food, weakening the ambitions, toughening the bones. In this way, he will cause the people to remain without knowledge and without desire, and prevent the knowing ones from any ado. Practice non-ado, and everything will be in order.
Non-ado?
Yeah, like ado, like I always think of the play Much Ado About Nothing,
Yeah.
like it's like fuss or concern.
Yeah, it's you don't hear that very often.
No.
Sure.
Yeah, I know. I read it first, I was like, Addo? And I was like, no, that's not right. It's not Addo.
So let's go ahead and start breaking it down. Not exalting the gifted prevents quarreling, or I guess I liked yours, Marissa. Can you reread that?
Yeah, by not exalting the talented, you will cause the people to cease from rivalry and contention. When I hear that, I think of like, you know, not holding yourself above others, not holding yourself in high regard, like not getting lost in your ego. You're not going to flare up somebody else's ego.
Yeah.
In addition to not allowing society to, we've almost created a caste system, right? Between, you know, athletes or movie stars or people we perceive to be, I don't know the right word, but then you have a whole culture around the idolization and trying to emulate. And then you have people so concerned with copying that person rather than discovering themselves. And the inherent end result of that is conflict. I mean, you can't avoid internal conflict if that's how you're modeling your life.
Yeah, and kind of that self-judgment also, like
Yes.
thinking that you're not good enough because someone else is so talented, and you're like, oh, I can never do that, you know, I could never play like Mozart, or I could never, you know, sing like Beyonce or whatever. So yeah, you just don't even try. You're like, you know, I'm not that good, so I'm not even gonna try. Yeah.
And you add to that the idea that there is art in anything you do. So you may not be a singer, but maybe you are a master of working with wood, or there, because we put certain talents above others, we don't see the virtue in the talents that we don't recognize as worthy of adulation.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me, I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but it's like when I think of the culture that, you know, men versus women, let's say, like, and like I saw, you know, you see so many women fight for like to be seen and like be equal as men, but it's almost like to say we have the same, we're the same as men, instead of just saying, hey, what we have is just as valuable. Like, do you know what I mean? What I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's just different. It's, you know, it's a different level. Yeah.
Not only that, but I had this exact conversation a couple of days ago, and I am prepared for any correction because obviously I'm speaking from a man's perspective, but men have been causing so many of the problems for the past several thousand years. I don't understand why women would try to emulate men when what they have to offer is probably going to solve a lot of the issues men have created. So why aren't you embracing the virtue of yin or of the feminine aspect as opposed to trying to emulate the same energy or mentality that created all the crap we're looking at right now?
I think like you pointed out, it's like what the culture thinks is valuable. And we tend to think of these masculine traits as more valuable than feminine traits.
If you honestly, without a filter, look at the condition of the world, I don't know if that holds up. That the masculine traits are working out that wonderfully. It's and balance. I mean, that's ultimately the way of the Tao, right? Is balance. The minute that you force too much in one direction or the other, whether it's positive or negative, male or female, yin or yang, imbalance creates issues.
This really like speaks to me just as it, so I teach third grade, and what is valued in the school, and like this notion that we're all supposed to also be great at everything. Like you're supposed to be good in all the subjects and you're supposed to, but it's like there's so many gifts that go undermined because like this, like school systems don't look at like the whole child and all the things that encompass, you know, our individuality. You know, it's still just like, hey, we're looking for you to be good at math and good at you know, and all these things, but like what happened to like creativity and imagination and in empathy, and where do we shine the light on those kids that are like thriving in those areas? And you're just kind of
And I don't understand that from the simple perspective of the people that we study, right? That we do. Einstein is a perfect example. Imagination is far more important than knowledge. So if here's a human being who we consider one of the smartest human beings in history, right? Someone we should take after, then how is creativity not an essential part of any education?
I think it's like people don't really see the full story, you know? And actually, I love that you brought it up. That is a story I read to my kids as we explore, like, who are mathematicians? What is math? And it's like, no, it's that wandering mind that dreams and is curious and, you know, and then wonders and like figures stuff out.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I don't know if the general population really understands an Einstein or anybody considered in the creative spectrum for like, they look at the results and not the process too. They're like, oh yeah, he's super smart. That's all they take away, you know, like he's a gifted person who is super smart. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Which I love that you said that too, because I've been very fascinated by physics for the last couple of decades, because more and more it's actually lining up and supporting a lot of the spiritual principles that we've been studying. And one of the things I found consistent among all the top physicists, especially the ones digging into like string theory and multi-dimensions and all that, they all say the same thing, that it's my imagination that gives me answers. And then the math helps me prove it. But it's that free flow, you know, allowing any possibility to exist that lets you find a possible answer. Not that you're good at math.
Yep. Sorry, I probably took us off on a whole different conversation.
No, that's
great. Well, let's go ahead and do the next line so we can get through this.
Yes.
We have less time this time. And this one speaks to me, but not collecting treasures prevents stealing. And I'm going to do both in the same line because they kind of go together.
Wait, that's number 4?
No, this is number 3.
We're
just doing the next line. So I'll
sorry.
start over again. Not collecting treasures prevents stealing. Not seeing desirable things prevents confusion of the heart. There was one time I went through this phase where every time I would go to the grocery store or something and I see something that I wanted, I would always tell myself, not seeing desirable things prevents confusion of the heart. Or especially like if you have kids, you know, you take them to the grocery store and they want everything. I want that, I want that, I want that. So I would just be like, here, now you can't see anything. You don't want anything. And then of course, just treasures prevent stealing. So yeah, I mean, inevitably if there's, somebody that has a bunch and then there's somebody that doesn't have anything, there's always that, what's the Bible proverb? Do not, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's, house or belongings and stuff like that. So yeah, that speaks to me mainly because I feel like I just don't really understand the desire for material objects. And anyhow, Elon knows that because we're pretty good friends. He knows I can go on and on.
It feels like, again, it's like all culture created, right? Like, so what society, what, big companies tell us that we're supposed to need and want gets, dumped into our heads, whether we realize it or not, and then creates this illusion that we need these things, and, to get happiness. And of course, we're always just chasing after this never ending pursuit of the thing that's going to make me happy. And, it really doesn't matter what income bracket you're in, you're still climbing the same ladder of like, I don't know. I just think of like Ubuntu, if you're familiar with like this idea of not having a money system, like not, communism, but contributism and just like not, because it's just the reality is in this society, it's like it is not equally distributed, and society is telling us we supposedly need these things to be happy. So it's like, how are we to discern, it's hard. How do you discern, like, I don't really need that thing. That thing is actually not going to provide me with what I think it's going to provide me. It's a false sense of happiness.
Well, from the beginning of time, that we know it, there's always been that like status, so people would show their status with material things, it gives them that sense of status. And I think that also lends into the ego. That's what the name brand is all about. It's like the same shirt, but they just put a certain label on it and charge a whole lot more because it becomes a status symbol. And I think that's, obviously tied into the ego, but that's been ingrained in our society since caveman days. I mean, how do we get past that?
Well, especially in this day and age, because like you were pointing out, Marissa, I read this, God, I'll try and find the article, but the point of the article was that marketing companies have actually spent the last 60 years hiring the best psychologists on the planet to figure out how to completely manipulate you in 30 seconds, how to get you to disregard your own thoughts and beliefs and your own, how do I say, self-worth, essentially, and then replace their image of you with your image of you. I mean, it's much deeper than I'm probably expressing at the moment, but it's a very difficult thing to deal with because you don't even know what's happening.
I mean, it's like, no matter how much I'm trying to, like, I realize these things are not going to provide me with happiness, but I'm still just drawn to, it's like that thing is like drawing you to it, like, and this need to feel to fit in, like to belong. And like, again, there's this notion, like you need X, Y, and Z to belong, and that's taken, some time and, like for me to kind of distinguish who am I and what's important to me versus like what all these people say I need or should have. And, but it's not, I don't think it's easy to do. I mean, none of this is easy to do, but.
Well, and the only other thing I wanted to add was we do have to update. So there's a line there where they say, keep people from knowledge and desire and feed their belly. It's not practical in this day and age anymore because there is no more hiding from it, right? There is no more, we create a community somewhere between the internet and the just constant stream of immediate information and marketing and targeting. It's now more important than ever to actually find the truth about yourself, because I think that's the only real resistance that you can find, is truly understanding yourself thoroughly to where those things don't have an impact on you anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next couple lines. I think I'm gonna read it from this one here, because I can't decide on this part which one I really like more. I have to say these last couple lines don't really click with me, but the wise therefore rule by emptying hearts and stuffing bellies, by weakening ambitions and strengthening bones. What kind of bothers me about this, it kind of just sounds like a ruler more,
Well,
like trying to, especially with if people lack knowledge, and desire, then intellectuals will not try to interfere. I mean, I guess that comes down to, maybe if I look at it more like manipulation. So, these intellectuals, like you were saying, are manipulating us, because they're using this knowledge and stuff to try to play the game and get people to want certain things. So if people don't have that, then they won't try to manipulate people. But
there's one part of that though. Part of the problem with this book, I think, is very much like maybe the Bible or the or the Hebrew book, is that if you don't have certain information, you're not going to be able to understand what they're saying. Read the line about strengthening the bones.
By weakening ambitions and strengthening bones?
Because in Qigong, at least in the system that I learned, that's your first step to developing your immortal body. We do bone marrow Nigong, and it's supposed to create this energy so then you can strengthen your astral and causal and other bodies to then start developing those for, the Taoists call it for immortality, but I guess to discover your immortal self. Does that change the meaning of it for you at all?
Yeah. So what do you think by weakening ambitions? Meaning, instead of trying to accomplish goals, you should...
No, because ambition is what stops you from seeing yourself. The minute that you desire to be something else, you don't take the time, or you have no desire to find out who you really are, because I want to be that person, or I want to fit in with that image or that part of society. Well, you're not spending any time discovering who you are. Your whole effort is dedicated to becoming whatever that is.
Gotcha.
That reminds me of like Ram Dass's like big thing about like becoming nobody. That's what I read that's what I pictured when I read this. But I also looked at it as like, this notion of feeding, filling the belly and toughening the bones. I was like, focusing on like what you actually need, as opposed to like these things outside of yourself. But I also, Alice, kind of like this notion of weakening the ambitions kind of like pushed me a little bit. But I think it also probably has to do with interpretation. Like, yes, on one plane, I do think ambition's important. And I actually, even to some degree, think the desire, that's part of our creative being. But I think it's like, you do it with a sense of self, like you do it with not trying to be something you're not, but like also like, I don't know, I think it's in our human nature to like want to do better, or want to do, I think there's a healthy balance of it. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's the yin yang.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the last line when it says, if nothing is done, then all will be well. Or the other thing, the teacher has, claiming nothing. So, if you let go of the ego and just create for the love of creating, and not because, you want to be a famous artist, or you want to sell your painting for thousands of dollars. So if you're just creating for the love of creating, then claiming nothing, as this card says, the sage, or just, you have nothing to lose. So it's like your ego won't get hurt. If you're just creating for the love of creating, then you don't care if your painting sells or anything else. You're just following your path with heart. Especially, or like singing, I can relate to that. When I if I was just singing for the joy of singing and not caring about anything, it would just bring me joy and not stress or,
Yeah.
comparing myself to others or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Any closing remarks on that one? Okay.
No.
Well, let's go ahead and move on. I'm sorry it's kind of rushed, so we only have 15 minutes to get to this other one. Okay.
I'm rereading that last line. Okay. Number 4.
4. The Tao is an empty vessel. It is used, but never filled. Oh, unfathomable source of 10,000 things. Blunt the sharpness, untangle the knot, soften the glare, merge with the dust. Oh, hidden deep, but ever present. I do not know from whence it comes. It is the forefather of the emperors. Okay, now for the card. This one's called Teaching Others. Avoiding distractions of merit prevents quarreling. This sounds a lot like the other one.
I was like, this sounds very different than what you just read already. And just
Exactly. I think these cards kind of mix 2 and 1. So not setting a value on rare things prevents theft. This sounds exactly like the other one. So I think they kind of mix it up. That's why I don't like these very much. So I'm gonna skip it because I think they combine the 2. Okay, so let's move on to this one. The title of this is The Way is Unimpeded Harmony. The Way is Unimpeded Harmony. Okay, the way is unimpeded harmony. Its potential may never be fully exploited. It is as deep as the source of all things. It blunts the edges, resolves the complications, harmonizes the light, assimilates to the world. Profoundly still, it seems to be there. I don't know whose child it is, before the creation of images. So this one is a lot like, I think, the first couple that we read, where it's kind of more going into the Tao and actually what it is. And we spoke a bunch about this last time. It's like the uncarved block. It's the empty vessel. It's used. So we tried to liken the Tao to the path, or you can even say it's like the path with heart, or I like to say love. And so if you say that, the Tao is love on this path with heart, then you can always use this energy. You can always use this inspiration, and it will never run out. It will always be there. It helps blunt the sharpness, untangle the knots, soften the glare. It helps you be one with everything, because it is the source of everything. So that's my interpretation of that.
I relate to this just from, my own meditation practice. Like when I first read this, I think I was trying to look too much into the words, but then when I just kind of like experienced it, I was like, this is like meditation for me, like how I experience it, right? Like this nothingness, but this softening and this, I don't know, like, so it's like, to me, when I read this, I feel like this is when I feel most connected to, whatever, if you want to call it the Tao, my soul, whatever, but this would be a way I would describe it, I guess, without knowing that I would describe it that way.
Yeah, no, I like that. I very much feel the same way, actually.
I'm curious to hear the one you have, Marissa. Is it pretty close to what she just read?
It's pretty similar. The Tao is like an empty bowl, which in being used can never be filled up. Fathomless, it seems to be the origin of all things. It blunts all sharp edges. It unties all tangles. It harmonizes all lights. It unites the world into one whole. Hidden in the deeps, yet it seems to exist forever. I do not know whose child it is. It seems to be the common ancestor of all, the father of things.
What about yours, Alon? Is it any different?
A little bit. The Tao can be infused into the nature and put to use without being exhausted. It is so deep and subtle like an abyss that it is the origin of all things. It is complete and perfect as wholeness can be. Round off edges, resolve confusion, harmonize with glory, act in unity with the lowliness. Tao is so profound and yet invisible. It exists in everywhere and anywhere. I do not know whose son it is. It existed before heaven and earth.
I like that last part a lot. So you two, both of those translations, the last part is way better than this, in my opinion. Because, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I do in my meditations, where I just connect to the 10,000 things and feel, it flowing through me and me flowing through them, and just recognizing that connection, that we are all connected, and that source of energy that runs through all things. I mean, if you're talking physics, and the energy that connects us all, that's what I try to tap into. And that is what I would consider the Tao. So tapping into that Tao, tapping into that energy of all things, and just finding that peace, because that's what it does. It brings you peace when you just realize you're part of everything, and everything's a part of you, and everything's equal. And it gives you a sense of purpose, almost, in a way, and comfort. So
I agree with, like, especially that comfort piece, because it's like everything is as it should be, even when things seem really messed up, and like this unfolding that's happening, it's like, I mean, I think of God or a source or whatever you want to name as like a poetic mathematician, but it's like things are very, it's not chaotic. And it's like there's this sense of like comfort and safety and trust, that it is what it is. And I don't feel stressed when I'm in that space of like connecting to that source.
And I think we perceive it to be chaotic because we don't have a wide enough view. We can't see the depths of it. But here's the fascinating part. So let's tie it back to the beginning, the imagination. This is very much feeling to me like pre-Big Bang, right? It existed before heaven and earth. It existed before any sort of physical manifestation. On a momentary side rant, it is sort of amazing that 5,000 years ago, whoever wrote this was able to perceive of the Big Bang 4,750 years before scientists even were able to start conceiving of it.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're describing here. It existed before heaven and earth. It is everywhere and anywhere. It is completed, perfect as wholeness can be. But that can also feel a little overwhelming to look at something so big.
yeah, I definitely think this one lends a lot to just a really good mindfulness practice, and a good, meditation, to just help ground yourself and find peace.
And I would add to that peace and the not knowing, because something knows.
One of my earliest understandings was you actually do know that that same knowledge that we're reading about right now is contained within us. It's just from the moment we're born until we start searching again, it's covered up by our worldly experience, whether it be school or parents or society or education or whatever it might be. So I think the majority of the path is just trying to uncover that information that's within you already. because you're made up of the same stuff that everything else is. Every master that's ever existed contains the same exact physical and psychological and physiological body that you do. So you're capable of realizing the same thing, right?
I don't know. I question that. I question if, like, I think we can get close, but can we really fathom the unfathomable? I don't know.
Not with the mind, not with the intellect, which is a
Yeah.
problem for me because I tend to think too much.
Yes, me too as well.
Yes.
And having
So it's
to
like,
lean into what's the experience instead of what's going on in my head, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Can't call it truth until you experience it. I've learned that from a very feisty Roshi.
Which is bizarre because you can't experience it until you accept it. So it's like I can't accept a thing because I haven't experienced it, but I can't experience it until I accept the truth about it. And that's sort of the catch-22 that I think starts people on the path.
Well, what is not a paradox on this path? You tell me.
Yes, yes. Well, what were we saying last week, Alice? I mean, just our very nature is a paradox. If we really are infinite beings, so you're taking this infinite immortal consciousness and shoving it into this finite, very limited body. I mean, that, yeah, right off the bat, you've started as a paradox. I guess that's the majority of life is trying to understand it, I'm guessing.
So I must add to my definition of the infinite one, poetic, mathematical comedian.
Yes, yes. Almost part trickster, just because it's entertaining, why not confuse the hell out of people? It's
It gets me wanting to think about, because there we go thinking, but just why not this separation? Why are we here? Why, well, to experience, right? We're here to experience that, and the only way to experience ourselves is, with the opposite. So if we were all one and we were all spirit and we were all, this energy, the only way to really know ourselves is to separate ourselves out. And so, it might be a struggle, but we're still all there. We still all that have that little piece of, the Tao in us. So,
so not to mix cultures here, but have we ever talked about the original Adam and Eve story, the pre-biblical Adam and Eve story? Someone told me the original Adam and Eve story was actually that in the beginning, Adam and Eve were one entity, Admon Kadon, or I think that's what it was called. And that they were essentially light surrounded by light, so they couldn't experience their own being because they were love that was surrounded by love. There was no way to experience it if that's all that surrounded them. So they went to God one day and said, we'd like to experience ourselves. And God said, well, the only way you could do that is by becoming that which you're not. So you have to enter the darkness. And that's what the physical universe is. The physical universe is the only place we can experience that which we're not to finally understand what we are.
Yeah. It shouldn't be difficult, though. Okay, well.
And then there's that question, is it, or do we just
overthink it?
Yeah. I swear half the time I wonder, there's like this little voice in my head going, are you just making things difficult to entertain yourselves? Because it's really right there.
Though.
I mean, it is.
Like, what else would you be doing? I don't know. For me, it's like ever since I got on this path, I'm like, not much else has engaged me as much. So I'm like, what else am I gonna do? What else is there to do?
And as much as we may hate it, we absolutely love it, whether or not we admit it.
And I have discussed this quite a bit, is these concepts are really simple. I mean, if you break them down, they're super simple. But then, there's that paradox again, but it's so difficult to achieve these things.
Yeah.
It's like, why is it so difficult if it's such a simple concept? So
that was actually one of the first things one of my first teachers ever said to me. It's so simple. It's so simple. Oh, but it's not easy.
I think
And-
we have so much working though against us. It is that it's like the hero's journey, right? It's like you
Yeah.
have to kind of if you didn't get to go through it all, like what's the point if it was so.
So, but look, I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell. So I was into that for a lot of years. And I finally realized one thing. Here's what's missing from the hero's journey is that the hero always ends up being accepted and adored by the culture that he's saving or embracing, right? The path is very different because you usually end up somewhat isolated. And maybe it's not a bad thing. It's not intentional, but I think when you realize the truth about yourself, people are maybe not as comfortable as they once were around you, or
That's true. That's my experience. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and also I can't blame necessarily others for that. I certainly would say I got into spiritual narcissism when I first started discovering. I was like, I know all this stuff.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
tell you how it works. And then they were like, yeah, you're annoying. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I am actually.
That's a whole
My
nother
God.
discussion right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, not
I'm gonna
stuck.
wait. I'll recommend one book before we go. Shogyan Trungpa, if you've never read that guy, he wrote a book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism.
Oh yeah.
It is brilliant. I am glad I found that one early because I was very much heading down the same path with this concept that, well, now I'm somehow better or above everyone else because I found this. And it was like the exact opposite of what it was trying to teach me. And somehow I completely turned it around into some ego serving thing. It's like, what?
Yep. Well, it was nice meeting both of you. Thank you for having this as an opportunity.
Yeah. It was really nice talking to you guys.
It's a pleasure. Hope to see you next time.
Yeah.
Happy equinox.
Yeah,
Bye.
same thing. Take care.